Welcome to the new YouTube channel. If you haven't already done it, hit the subscribe button to follow us all season long for updates and content. So happy that you're here. It's going to be a great year. Welcome back to the Richard Sherman podcast, presented to you by our friends and partners over at Breitling. I don't know if you watched the game tonight, but Raheem Morris in that last was smoldering, Mitchell, and you could see his Breitling on his wrist. It looked dang good, and he felt really good about his team's chances because they had just drove down the field to score the game-winning touchdown in this game to beat the Philadelphia Eagles in dramatic fashion. That was a crazy ending, Mitchell. What you think?
It was. I mean, and shout out to Raheem Morris, friend of our friends, Breitling. I think it was his good luck charm today. The Atlanta Falcons come back and win in dramatic fashion, Richard. This game was one that was a defensive battle early. We saw some big plays. C.J. Gardner-Johnson made a huge stop on fourth and one. It looked like it was Philly's day. The fan base was fired up. You saw Jason Kelce on Monday Night Football representing his old team, and Kirk Cousins leads a huge charge down at the end. Big touchdown pass to Drake London, the huge receiving threat. Richard, this is a big-time win for the Atlanta Falcons, and then all of a sudden competitive NFC South. I want your thoughts, because Atlanta Falcons winning on the road against Philly, who looked very good last week against Green Bay. I think they put the world on notice here, Richard. How much do you like Atlanta right now?
Well, I like them, but that NFC South is looking like going like the NFC East did a couple years ago. Went from, not a lot of people thinking this is going to be a very tough conference to the Saints, surprising the Dallas Cowboys, really blowing the game open and looking like a really dominant team. And then you look over at Tampa Bay and what Baker Mayfield's doing, made a statement game against your beloved Detroit Lions. And so it's looking like a dogfight in this conference. So the Atlanta Falcons really, really needed this game to really stay in the hunt for this conference. But this is what they expected when they got Kirk Cousins. Sometimes, Mitchell, adversity is the fuel of innovation. And you could see Atlanta's offense got better when they had to have it. They only had a little bit of time. Kirk couldn't think about that Achilles tendon. He couldn't think about, oh man, how am I going to drop back? He just had to stand in the pocket. The offensive line saved their best for last. They gave him a heck of a pocket. He didn't have a lot of pressure in his face on that last drive, and he was able to really shred this Philadelphia Eagles defense that was playing a really soft two, it looked like. I would have thought they were in quarters, but it just looked like they were trying to prevent really, really big plays. And I would have thought they would have played two-man or something like that. You don't need to rush Kirk Cousins, but they played a really soft zone, and Kirk just attacked the young corner throughout the game. Really, really took his time. And then at the end of the drive to score the touchdown to Drake London, he attacked Darius Slay, friend of the program, a veteran, and very dangerous, playing with fire over there, Mitchell. But as a corner, when you get in a red zone situation, especially in hurry up, really the last route you're thinking about is out. I don't think there's any other route I'm like giving them, because you're thinking fade ball, not an out, slant, maybe a hitch, like an over route or a return route in the back of the, inline route where they're returning the back of the end zone, but you're not thinking he's going to run up here and run it out. And it's such a timing play, and quarterbacks don't do it because it's the easiest pick six in the world if you mistake it. And I don't give you as much room as you thought, or that ball sails on you just a little bit. It's a pick six. So it was an incredibly ambitious throw by Kirk Cousins, and it was an absolute dime when they had to have it to Drake London. He made big throws throughout that drive to get him in position. But you got to give Bijan Robinson, he had a heck of a game, almost 100 yards rushing. Darnell Mooney had some really crucial catches on that drive, almost slipped out for what could have been the game-winning touchdown himself. Had a touchdown earlier in the game. Jesse Bates had a freaking incredible, the Pro Bowler, it had a heck of a game. Obviously, we all saw the game-sealing interception, but he had 12 tackles and was just all over the place leading this defense. And then on the other side, Jalen Hurts, he had a solid game throwing the football. At times, it looked like he was leaving the pocket a little prematurely, and I don't understand what that is. They have one of the best offensive lines in football. They were giving him good pockets. Atlanta wasn't bringing a ton of pressure, so there was no real reason for him to vacate the pocket as many times as he did. At one point, there was a safety blitz, and Mailata had taken on both defenders. Like, it was still a clean pocket, and Jalen Hurts exited to the right. He ended up making a play, but, that's something they're going to have to talk about, and you're going to have to keep an eye on, because I'm not understanding why he's leaving the pocket, leaving really clean pockets at times so early without going through his reads. He ran the ball really well for 83 yards, 85 yards, and a touchdown. On the tush push, Saquon Barkley, 22 rushes for 95 yards, that 2-point conversion. But the play that's going to live in infamy for Saquon Barkley is that drop, that critical drop on third down that could have sealed the game, if not ended the game right there, and allowed the Philadelphia Eagles to pretty much run out the clock, or maybe he runs it in and scampers in for a touchdown, gives them a 2-score lead, and game's over right there. But that was a huge drop, really huge drop, and, that's one he's going to want back. It was right in his hands. They slow-moed it. Looked like he focused, easy. I don't know if his hands were slippery. The ball had something on it, but it's an unfortunate play, and that defense, they're going to have to get that together, because you can't let a team just walk down the field like that, Mitchell. You want to not give up touchdowns, but you can't just give up 10, 15, 20 yards each pass, Mitchell. You got to keep them in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
You can give up 8 and 8 and 8, but you can't give up 15 and 15 and 25. You get down the field pretty quick doing that. And then he's hurrying up, so they can't rotate those defensive linemen. They're getting a little fatigued. They're not getting the pressure they were getting earlier. And when Atlanta got very little pressure outside of a Matthew Judon sack in this ball game. Very little pressure on Jalen Hurts, because this Philadelphia offensive line, I told you, they're stout with Mailata and Lane Johnson on the other side. I mean, this is one of the best offensive lines in football, but when they had to have it, they put pressure on Jalen Hurts, got a quarterback hit right as he released the football, leading to the Jesse Bates interception that sealed the ball game. And you talk about a timely play. That was a heck of a play by Jesse Bates to be roaming in the right spot, make the play on the football, bring it down, and end that ball game.
TD, Tutty, taking it to the house, in for 6. Whatever you want to call a touchdown, one thing's for sure. Touchdowns matter more at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. On the ground, in the air, from special teams or defense, we don't care how they score them. We just want to bet on touchdowns. And DraftKings Sportsbook is the #1 place to bet touchdowns. Ready to place your first NFL bet? Try something simple, like a player to score a touchdown. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app and make your bet today. Ready to do a touchdown dance of your own? New DraftKings customers bet $5 to get $250 in bonus bets instantly and get 1 month of NFL Plus Premium. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code Richard. That's code Richard for new customers to get $250 in bonus bets when you bet just $5, and you get 1 month of NFL Plus Premium. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Philly missed A.J. Brown, who's going to be out a few weeks with a hamstring injury. And as you know, these hamstring injuries tend to linger if you don't take care of them right away. They didn't look explosive out there. I mean, Philly obviously gave the ball a lot to Saquon, who looks like he's going to really elevate this offense to the next level. But without A.J. Brown, it's really just Devontae Smith, and they were giving the ball to Covey. They really didn't get Jahan Dotson involved much, or the tight ends. It was just more consistent first down after first down, not many big hit plays like they're used to having with A.J. Brown. But Richard, this game was huge for Kirk Cousins, the way this game ended, because prior to that final drive, Kirk Cousins was had about 180 yards and a touchdown. And you already know, if Atlanta starts this season 0-2, there's going to be a lot of folks in that local media market that are going to be calling for a change at quarterback. This was huge for Kirk. He showed his veteran leadership abilities. He took a handful of hits out there too, which I think is probably for the long run is good for him and gaining trust with his Achilles. Richard, this is a big time win for Atlanta. Let's not make light of that at all. They play next week at home against the Chiefs, so that's going to be another battle for them. And then the Eagles go and take on the hot Saints. So both of these teams are staring sub 500 in the face with their next matchups here next week, Rich.
And you got to think, Atlanta's got really high hopes for this season, deservedly so. They just got Matthew Judon. They got Justin Simmons. They got a talented offensive core. So they got high expectations. But, making the playoffs would be a big win for this team, big win for first-year coach Raheem Morris. But on the opposite side, Philadelphia Eagles, their expectations are much higher, much, much higher. And so to lose this game and then to go into New Orleans and then into Mercedes-Benz Dome or the Superdome or whatever it is these days and have to battle these freaking scorching hot Saints in a game, if they lose that game, then you're starting to have very difficult conversations about who's the problem. And with A.J. Brown out, their big-time, huge playmaker, it changes the complexity of the defense. You talk about Marshawn Lattimore being a really elite corner. In that game, you'd be like, oh, he's not following anybody. But without A.J. Brown in, he could follow Devontae Smith and make the other guys beat you. Can Dallas Goedert beat you? Can you beat us with just Saquon? And they got a talented team. They got a talented pass rush with Cam Jordan and those guys. They're going to put some pressure on the quarterback. They put a lot of pressure on Dak Prescott. The secondary with Tyrann Mathieu and Paulson Adebo, they made some huge plays in that ball game, got interceptions. So you got to think Joe Woods is going to have these guys really prepared to play when Philadelphia comes into town. Obviously, Jalen Hurts has been intercepted in both the games to start the season, intercepted to end the game this week. And so that's going to be something he needs to get fixed. You got to clean up. You can't, you're the $50 million quarterback now. You can't be turning the ball over to end the game. This is, early in the season, man, this season is turning out to be a real barn burner, Mitchell, and really sending a lot of plot twists and turns throughout the game. That is really cool. And we could look at last night's game in Houston. Everything you wanted to see in that game, Mitchell. Two quarterbacks that have a lot of acclaim, a lot of praise, a lot of early maybe expectations from the outside world. That Caleb Williams going the number one pick. C.J. Stroud having an outstanding season last season. What were they going to do? And is this Chicago's Bears team? Is that defense really ready to take the next step? And I think they really acquitted themselves really well in this game last night. I think the Chicago Bears defense made enough plays. They were making it life really difficult on C.J. Stroud and that really talented receiving core. Made things very difficult on Mixon. I think had a really hard time throughout this game finding running room after having a really good first game. But Caleb Williams, Mitchell, I told you, I called this early. I don't know. I don't know if this translates. I don't know if what he does translates. And on top of that, what were the Bears doing in the draft? Like when you got Caleb Williams, everybody blamed Justin Fields for everything last year, but they could all agree that line was atrocious last season. And you thought, okay, you got 2 picks in the top 10 in the draft. Sure, you take Caleb Williams. Everybody can live with that. Everybody can understand. Chicago's finally going to get their quarterback of the future, best quarterback they've ever drafted, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, got it. But then you go receiver? For what? For what? You have nobody to protect him. Like, I thought they go Joe out right there. I thought they, maybe they bounce back and get a center or a guard, but you need to draft an offensive lineman. Drafting a receiver who ends up going out and dropping a touchdown. It looked like an easy touchdown. I can understand he mistimed it. It looked like somebody might tip the ball, but in the National Football League, receivers make that play, Mitchell. That's a wide open 3-pointer in the NBA. Maybe somebody just did a flyby. Now you regather, maybe take a dribble, drain. But he dropped it. And so you could say the deep defender was on him a little bit and all this, but you put 2 hands on that football, yeesh. But I have not seen from Caleb Williams, and that offensive line is a big reason why we haven't seen it, because he doesn't have time to really showcase his talent. And we were talking about this earlier. We had a production meeting for TNF, and we were talking about why the Patriots played Jacoby Brissett instead of Drake May. And everybody was all, up in arms. But this is why. Because you don't want to shell shock a young quarterback. You don't want to shell shock and make him gun shy. Because now he doesn't have that confidence and swagger and everything, all that talent and moving around and throwing it sidearm. Everybody's like, oh, Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes waited behind Alex Smith and then got to play. Very few greats. Tom Brady waited and then he got to play. There's very few great quarterbacks that come out and have that expectation and then really play well, because Peyton got to play early, but he didn't play well. He threw a lot of interceptions in his rookie year. And people just forget about that because he went on to have a Hall of Fame career, deservedly so. He's everything he was supposed to be, no question about it. But his rookie year was different than it could have been because they threw him in the fire early. They're picking with the number one pick for a reason, Mitchell, because they weren't a very good team. And although their defense, the last 8 games of the season, was number one, that offensive line needed to be addressed, and they did not address it. They went receiver. That was a mistake, and it's damning this team, and it's damning this quarterback right now. Like, it all seems good 7-on-7. But when you don't have an offensive line to protect the quarterback, you can't even see how talented he is. Like, is he a bust? Is he not a bust? We can't tell because he got sacked 7 times. Football season is here, and Game Time has you covered. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your team play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code Sherman for $20 off. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use the redeem code SHERMAN for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
This team scored 1 touchdown in the last 2 games offensively. They won. They beat the Titans off of special teams and defense, and their defense kept them in this game. To your point, and you see it too running the ball. I mean, because of this, Caleb Williams gets sacked 7 times, throws 2 interceptions. They developed no run game. Their big free agent addition and DeAndre Swift goes off for 14 carries for a grand total of 18 yards, Richard. And then you got the problem here is, Rich, is we saw it last year. Everyone saw CJ Stroud, right? Here's a rookie that takes the league by storm and is an outside shot as being an MVP, conversation towards the end of the year. Everyone's like, wow, CJ Stroud did it. There's no reason Caleb Williams can't do it. And look what he has around him. He's got Keenan Allen. He's got DJ Moore. He's got Rome Odunze. But to your point, Richard, keep it simple, stupid, right? I mean, the football is meant to be built in the trenches from the center position outwards. And they addressed it a little bit in free agency. But to your point, the young talent influx needs to be on that O-line for the Bears, because they've got a great defense and a team, frankly, that would scare the living heck out of me if you gave them a mediocre offensive line. But Richard, we look here at the Texans, and they could truthfully go on a roll here, because outside of the Texans, the AFC South is a hot pile of mess. This team, I don't see a world that they don't win this by a number of games, unless Trevor Lawrence miraculously turns this thing around or Anthony Richardson gets hot. But Rich, talk to me more about the Texans. Like, what are your real thought process here? Do you still view them as a Super Bowl contender?
Yeah, I still view them the same way I viewed them before. They're still a young team who needs to go through these learning curves. They need to find a way to incorporate Stephon Diggs into this offense and ingratiate him of sorts, Mitchell, into this offense, because Nico Collins is the go-to guy, Tank Dell. But it's always hard, Mitchell, to bring a third guy into the equation and have him mesh in the other way. They had a great chemistry, a great rapport, but the book on Stephon Diggs coming out of Buffalo last year, and you hear it I don't think Josh Allen is purposely trying to take any shots, but he's like, everybody eats. He's not focused on just getting Stephon the ball all the time. He's able to just say, hey, who's open? That's where I'm going. And right now, you could see at moments C.J. Stroud trying to get Stephon Diggs the ball. And he's a fantastic receiver, so I can understand why. But is it within the flow of the offense? Is it in Bobby Slowick's offense? Is that where the ball should be going? And is this the same flow that they were in last season? And I think that's where they're going to have to get back to, is that you're going to have to get back to saying, hey, let's just run the offense. And the guy who gets open is the guy who gets the ball. Hey, what the defense gives us, hey, it's cover 3. That means the ball goes to the corner route. Whoever's on the corner route is getting the ball. Not, hey, I know Stephon needs a few targets here. Stephon is a great receiver and fantastic, but if the play in the defense does not say that he should be getting the ball, then don't throw it there. And I think you got to, as a young quarterback with a veteran receiver who's been very successful, incredibly talented receiver, you feel the pressure to get him the ball, as you should, but you got to stay within the offense. And I think if C.J. Stroud can do that and really maintain his command of that offense, I think they'll be great. That defense looked really good. Derek Stingley is a problem. He's making them target the other corner all the time. You look on that D-line, Danielle Hunter looked incredible. Danielle Hunter was a monster, Mitchell. A monster all night. Will Anderson, Henry To'o. So, Mitchell, I'm not going to be able to pronounce that. I'm hoping I got it. I didn't. No disrespect. He had 13 tackles and a sack, and he looks like he has a great feel for what they want from their linebackers. The 99-9 eyes, the vision, the breaking down on checkdowns. He's getting home on pressure. I like that. And then on the other side, Chicago's defense still looked good. Jaquan Brisker got a sack. Kyler Gordon got a sack. Javon Dexter got a sack. They were putting pressure on the quarterback all night long. They're recovering well. Our guy, friend of the program, he played a really good game. Jalen Johnson played a really good game. They did their part. You can't, that's an offense you don't expect to hold to under 20 points. You hold this offense under 20 points, you expect to win the game. And at the end, they still had chances to win the game. But Caleb Williams, he didn't feel comfortable in that pocket. Deservedly so. He got hit 11 times. And he missed on some go routes where it was almost intentional. Did they call it? They called the intentional grounding on one of them. But you got to give the receiver a chance. If you're going to put it up, put it up. He's throwing it 20 yards behind the receiver, and I can't really blame him. Look, I don't play the position. And I'm not saying I'm sitting out there and getting hit 11 times and I'm going to throw the ball accurately. I'm not saying that because I cannot say that. So give the kid a break, and I'm going to give him a break because I'm saying, protect him. But that's on Ryan Poles. What were you thinking? Drafting a receiver instead of a tackle or a guard or a center. If you would have used freaking 5 picks on O-linemen, nobody would have said anything about it. It would be like, oh, makes sense. They didn't have a lot of great offensive linemen last year, but you didn't. And now your quarterback is suffering. It looks great. If this was 7-on-7, your offense would be fantastic, but it's not. Trenches. The teams that win are built in the trenches. If you look at the Final Four last year, you look at the Detroit Lions, trenches. They got good trench play, Mitchell. You look at the Baltimore Ravens, great trench play, Mitchell. You look at the San Francisco 49ers, great trench play, Mitchell. You look at the Kansas City Chiefs. You can look at either side of the ball for them, the interior O-line with Thuney and those boys, or Chris Jones on the other side. Great trench play. And you think, we're going to draft a receiver. What?
Richard, the way you simplified things, man, God bless. Yeah, you convinced me of it. There's no question about it. Draft a damn tackle. I'm with you 1,000%. Let's shift focus here a little bit, Rich. We got to talk about your San Francisco 49ers. We already talked about it last podcast. Tough loss against the Vikings. But even tougher today, as we just got news that Deebo Samuel is going to be sidelined with an injured calf. You pair this with the loss of CMC, who is now on IR. And Richard, you kind of hinted at it a little bit. We've seen it in the past in football and in the NBA. Calf strains are not to be messed with. You can vouch for that 1,000 times over. Kevin Durant played in the NBA Finals with a calf strain. We saw what happened there. When you play with calf strains, Richard, you can take it away, but CMC is putting himself at risk of an Achilles injury, and that's why it looks like they put him on IR. Richard, what is your panic meter at right now with the San Francisco 49ers? They look a little bit vulnerable with these injuries.
It's still 6, Mitchell, only because I feel comfortable and fingers crossed, knock on wood and all that stuff. They're going to play a Rams team that had a really difficult time with the Arizona Cardinals. They're really banged up on the offensive line. I'm hoping that this can get the San Francisco D-line on track, Javon Hargrave and those boys to start to get pressure and be able to get home a little bit. Matthew Stafford isn't moving a lot in that pocket. Cooper Kupp is a little banged up. Their receiving core is banged up. Kyron Williams isn't having the same start to the season as he had last year. So there's a number of things that's working in San Francisco's favor. Jordan Mason has been a revelation in this offense. It would have been nice to say, hey, maybe this is Ricky Purcell, but they were forced to put him on the IR with the incident of him being robbed and being shot. And, thank goodness he's okay. And he pulled through and he looks like he's going to be ready to go very soon after the bye week. But this is going to be a chance. This is going to be a chance for Brandon Ayuk to shine. Brandon Ayuk and Brock Purdy, this is going to be, Cal's going to have very little choice but to draw up plays for Brandon Ayuk to showcase his abilities, to put pressure on this defense, and really push the ball down the field. They're going to have to push the ball down the field this game to Kittle, and they're going to have to find a third. They're going to have to push it to BA, to Kittle, and they're going to have to find somebody else to get open. Is it going to be Juwan Jennings? Because he's shown up in very critical situations in these first 2 ball games, as he has in the past. Is he going to be a bigger presence in this game? I would expect so. On the flip side, this is a good chance for All-Pro Fred to continue his Defensive Player of the Year campaign that started off incredibly strong. He's doing a great job himself, and it's time for everybody else to meet him where he's at. Nicholas John Bosa had 2 sacks in the ball game last week. We need more from everybody. This should be a dominant performance from this defense, and that's what they're going to need with the injuries on offense. You got to lean on your defense, and it's incredibly talented. The 2 corners, Diamador Lenore and Charvarius Ward, Mooney, they're doing a great job. I think Talanoa Hufanga has a chance to come back this week, and he's going to, I'm sure, put his imprint on this game, and I'm hoping that that's enough to get them over the top. This game is in Levi South, is what they call that stadium, Mitchell, in LA. They call it Levi South because it is usually pretty goddamn packed with San Francisco 49ers fans and not as many Los Angeles Rams fans, even though they were able to win a world championship just a few years ago in this same stadium. SoFi has not been filled up with Rams fans, but I think Deebo will be fine. I hope, knock on wood again, that, this is just a strain, and I've had calf strains that's just calf strains. You have calf strains that feel more Achilles-ish, but they're saying calf strain. I'm going to believe them that this is just a calf strain, and, usually happens when it's dehydration and muscle, and hopefully it's just a grade 1, and, he just needs to rest it for a few days, maybe a week, and then he'll have a chance to get back out there, and it's nothing more serious than that.
Well, and you kind of touched on it too. If he's going to miss a couple games, he might as well miss these next few. I mean, the Rams are limping into this game without Cooper Kupp or Puka Nacua, and then you got the Patriots at home after that. So, these are not necessarily guaranteed losses for this team without Deebo. I expect the San Francisco 49ers to come out on top even without him, but fortunately for them, they're able to get him right and move forward as the season progresses. Richard, a team that's gotten a lot wrong over the last years is the Carolina Panthers, and it seemed to hit rock bottom now out in Carolina. David Tepper forced the hand of this team to draft Bryce Young. He mortgaged their future and traded first-round picks, DJ Moore, multiple first-round picks, second-round picks. I mean, the amount of assets that were given up for Bryce Young, who looks nothing short of beyond mediocre in this league at this point, it's come to the point where you almost feel bad for the guy. Richard, there are reports that Frank Reich was pushing and pounding the table for CJ Stroud, and the rumor is that David Tepper overruled him on that. Richard, what are your thoughts about Bryce Young getting benched? Because I don't know if there's a more poorly managed team in all professional sports than the Carolina Panthers right now.
Well, I'm sure CJ Stroud is, on his knees with his hands together, praying to God and thanking him that he dodged that bullet, Mitchell, because that could be a career changer. We could be talking about a whole different CJ Stroud. We could be talking about a whole different player, a whole different career trajectory like we are, because they weren't a very talented team when Bryce Young got there. Not that, it's all the team's fault and it's all the O-line or the receivers, because the receivers are getting open schematically. They're open players. You can look at the tape, the all 22, they're drawing it up where guys are open. He's still our receivers in the National Football League, and they can make some plays. Adam Thielen, it was a viral clip showing his frustration last week when he was open on an over route and he had a step, and that's all you get in this league is about a step, Mitchell. The windows aren't very big, so you don't need a ton of room. You're accurate quarterback, put the ball where it's supposed to be. He'll run and he'll do what he's paid to do. I think this is the right move. There were times that when Bryce Young got injured last season, that Andy Dalton had to step in, and he played well. The Red Rifle, as they called him in Cincinnati, Mitchell, can still sling the ball around the yard, and he does it at a high tilt, and he will get the most out of this offense. That's what people don't get about the NFL. Like Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold is a great study in how development and just getting in the right situation, pushing the reset button, being able to go back out there, and he's in a good spot with Kevin O'Connell in Minnesota. Just had a big win against the San Francisco 49ers, a team that, helped him get to where he is. And now he's got a different confidence. Now he's walking out. He walked into MetLife and got a win. I know Jet fans was like, it's suspicious. But at the same time, when you give veteran quarterbacks who really have played the game at a high level, and you can say what you want about Andy Dalton, but in his heyday, he did have some really, really good years where he played at a high level. He and AJ Green had some really good years, and they had Sanu, and they were moving the football. But he's going to get the most out of his offense. You're going to look at this offense and you're going to say, oh, why haven't they been doing this the whole time? Because sometimes you just don't get the opportunity. It was weird Tua's rookie year when the Miami Dolphins set Ryan Fitzpatrick on the bench after like a 400-yard game and played Tua Tagovailoa, and he had like less than 100 yards for 2 or 3 games, and they won the game against the Rams. It's just weird what these teams do sometimes, but this is the opposite. It seems like, hey, David Canales and his offense and these coordinators are like, hey, we're not saying he's a bust. We're not saying that he can't do the job. We're saying he needs to sit. He needs time to develop, and we're not helping him. We're not doing him any favors by continuing to put him out there and plummeting his confidence. So what we need to do is allow him to watch a quarterback run this offense, prepare each week, and really learn and develop as a player so that when we get him a chance out there, that his actual talent can be showcased, because it's not being showcased right now, Mitchell. He didn't get a chance to develop. And I don't care if you pick number 2, number 1, wherever you're picked in a draft. Like, you still shouldn't be forced. And Tom Brady said it as well as anybody. And if you're not listening to me, that's fine. You better listen to Tom. If you're not listening to the GOAT, then you probably just don't need to be around this game or hearing about it, or because that's the truth. You need to develop. It's a very tough league to come in when you've never been here. You've never been able to do this job. You did it in college, but that's a whole different game. And now you're in the NFL. You're doing your best, and it's not good enough. And you have nobody to look at. You have nobody to ask questions, to bank ideas off of. All the pressure's on you. Your own social media, they're talking bad about you every single week. They're saying all is lost, and they don't expect your team to win a game. So I'm thankful for Bryce Young to get a chance to sit back and watch a veteran quarterback who's going to have a really good command of this offense. And now teams better be a little bit more wary of the Carolina Panthers than they would have been earlier in the season, because now you got a veteran quarterback. They can't sneak up on you. Now, this is still an NFL team, and they got an NFL quarterback. Be careful.
Richard, changing gears again here. The Kansas City Chiefs, the defending Super Bowl champions, escape in the nail biter yesterday against Cincinnati Bengals. And today we find out Isaiah Pacheco is going to be out 6 to 8 weeks with a fractured fibula, I believe is the injury. Richard, he's going to be on the IR. He's expected to return this season, but this is a team that was really leaning on Isaiah Pacheco coming into the season. You talked about it. Jerick McKinnon is no longer in the fold over there. They're left with undrafted rookie Carson Steele and Samaje Perine as their two running backs right now, with Clyde Edwards-Helaire at some point coming back. And we just got news that they brought in Kareem Hunt for a visit. Richard, what's your level of concern for Kansas City without Isaiah Pacheco at starting running back?
At 2, 3. Like, not that he's not an important piece, but Mitchell, they'll weather this storm without him. They'll do a good job. They don't have a crazy schedule. The Atlanta Falcons, that'll be a good game. Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman has these Chargers right where they need to be. They're running the football at a really high tilt. They got the Saints. Then they got a bye week. I think they can survive it. I'm sure Kareem Hunt is, he's going to come in and do what he does. I'm sure if they had to, Jet McKinnon might get a call and brought in to see if he's in shape. He's a guy that played some good football for him at times. Obviously, Father Time is undefeated. But if they just need a Band-Aid and somebody to get them through a couple games, they have options. And when you have Patrick Mahomes and you have Andy Reid calling the plays, Mitchell, I'm not going to say a running back is going to hold them back, Mitchell. I'm sorry. That's just not where they're going to be at. It sucks because Isaiah Pacheco was having a really good season and is a really good player, really dynamic, fun to watch. So I hope he comes back healthy as fast as possible with speedy recovery. But I think they'll be fine.
Another team dealing with the injury bug, and this one in a big way. The LA Rams have now lost Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, and several offensive line starters. Richard, this team is now 0-2, 2 huge losses. I mean, one against the Lions and a nail biter, and getting blown out by the Cardinals next week. They get the luxury of playing the 49ers next week, fresh out of loss. Richard, it could get ugly in LA. What is your concern level about the LA Rams?
9, Mitchell, 9. It's up there because
I don't think it's a 2.
I don't think it can't be. It can't be because losing one Pro Bowl receiver, you're like, well, we got the other, and then you lose both, and you're like, hey, we draft well, but nobody drafts that well. If somehow the Eagles lost AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, Mitchell, their concern level is up there too. They still got great O-line, they still got all this, but you lose a lot, and so to lose Puka Nacua coming off a great season that he had last year, to lose Cooper Kupp, as a leader and everything he's done in his past, that's going to be tough with the San Francisco 49ers coming into town. But these are always the scary games for me, Mitchell, because you should dominate. It should be a blowout, right?
Yep.
But you got to do it, Mitchell. And these are still NFL players, and Matthew Stafford is still at the helm, the old gunslinger who does not say die. As you know, watched him for a number of years. He does not say die. He does not. He's going to go out there with a bad O-line, young receivers, unproven receivers, and try to give San Francisco 49ers a run for their money. Now, should it be a really good game for San Francisco 49ers to get back on track and show their dominance, run Jordan Mason consistently, let Brock Purdy push the ball down the field a little bit? Yes. But for all intents and purposes, this should be a dominant performance for the San Francisco 49ers, and we should feel good going in. But this is the kind of trap game that you got to be careful with. And I know Kyle Shanahan is saying the exact same thing I'm saying, and so is Nick Sorensen. Like, hey, don't sleep on these dudes. Do not sleep. Do not sit there and say, oh man, we got this one in the bag, or feel comfortable. You should feel you shouldn't eat this week. You should starve yourselves because you should feel ravenous. You should feel chomping at the bit to get to this game and to put on a show. Like, you should feel like, hey, man, like desperate. They're going to play. The Rams have nothing to lose. They're going to play with desperation. They know, man, all their players are injured. The San Francisco 49ers have to play with the same desperation from everybody. You can't have the special team snafus that you did last week. You almost still won the game, but unnecessary. A block punt, come on. That's unacceptable. And then a muffed kick that we got back, but these are things you got to clean up. You can't have that championship team. But I'm not seeing this as a game that the Rams should win. The San Francisco 49ers should win this game, but
we shall see, Richard. It is the NFL. 3 teams this week where were touchdown or more underdogs. Well, won. I don't know when the last time that's happened in the NFL, but it was a wild one for underdogs this past week. Richard, last week was the return of you going to Miami for Thursday night football. I know you were fired up. You guys looked like you were sweating profusely next to you and Witt. I don't know what was going on with him. I know you were playing towel guy for him and helping him out. Richard, how fun was it being in Miami? I guess week 2, but your first Thursday night football.
It was a lot of fun, Mitchell. It's the best party in sports is TNF tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern, Thursday night on Prime. Every week. If you guys want to be entertained, we come to entertain. That's what we're here for. It's not Gladiator, but are you entertained? Kind of ordeal.
I was pretty damn entertained, Rich. I tuned in at like 7:01. I saw you, on a national ad. You're strutting your stuff at Wingstop. God bless you, man. That's awesome. But Richard, we got a doozy. I know you always love flying to New York, a nice 6-hour cross-country flight for you.
Back to
New York. You get to spend 2 weeks there, man. It's going to be awesome for you. We see the New York Jets take on division foe New England, who's a little bit better than teams anticipated. New England almost beat Seattle. I mean, very well could have won that game. Richard, this game is going to be an interesting one. You get to witness Aaron Rodgers firsthand. What are your thoughts on this matchup? Vegas has it as a 6.5 point Jet favored. Your thoughts?
Vegas is trying to get some action. They're trying to get some action, Mitchell. They're trying to win them some money. Vegas is Vegas for a reason. If they're saying 6.5, bet the under. Be careful because Vegas knows more than we know for some reason. I don't know. But the Jets get an opportunity to play at home for the first time this year in front of their fans. Aaron Rodgers. Coming full circle, was at home when he injured that Achilles on this turf at MetLife. Fingers crossed, toes crossed, ankles crossed, Mitchell, that everything goes great and he plays well. The Patriots have played really well. Jacoby Brissett is the most hot pressured quarterback in the National Football League right now, but not the most sacked because he's able to avoid pressure even from free rushers. He did it a couple of times in the Seattle game. He did it the week before. In that win that they had against Cincinnati. And that's why they're not playing Drake May. This offensive line isn't quite where they need to be yet, and he's able to still make plays and still be productive offensively. So this Jets defense is going to have to impose their will. They had a tough matchup against the San Francisco 49ers to start, and then they had a game where a lot of people thought they should be in control of. Against the Titans, they held them to 17 points, got the win. And now this is a game where they got to stop the run because Ramondre Stevenson has been running the ball really well. They're going to lean on him. They're going to keep trying to run the ball down your throat defensively. They're going to play man-to-man coverage. They're not going to let your best player beat them. They're not. So they're not going to let Garrett Wilson just play one-on-one all day. Every day, all throughout this game. They're not. They're going to double him. They're going to make Alan Lazard beat him. They're going to make Breece Hall find a way to beat him. They're going to make the other guys beat him. And that's been the Patriot way since Belichick first got there. He's not going to let your best receiver beat him. So I'm excited. This is going to be a really good game. Anytime it's a divisional game, you feel like, man, it's going to be a dogfight. I don't think it's ever going to be a blowout. CJ Mosley is questionable. DJ Reed is questionable. I think they're going to, in a game like this, they have to have it. It is a short week, but I think those guys are tough human beings. And DJ Reed, knowing the guy he is, he's going to play. But this Patriots defense has been legit all season. And they gave the Seattle Seahawks all they could handle last week. It took a overtime drive from Geno Smith to get the win and a Jason Myers field goal to get this win. But they are playing good football. And so Aaron is going to have to show some Aaron. He's going to be efficient, not turn the ball over, man coverage, and he knows he's going to get it. I expect him to be effective.
Richard, I'll say this. After watching your first Thursday night football broadcast, one of the coolest things I saw Amazon ended this year is that alternative broadcast with the all 22s with the next gen stats. For those of you guys that haven't checked it out yet, you guys should flip over to there if you're watching it tomorrow or on Thursday night. You guys will love it. It's really unique how they break it down. So make sure you check that out. That's this week's Thursday Night Football preview presented by Prime Video. Be sure to watch the Patriots take on the Jets. Like you said, you can tune in at 7 p.m. Eastern time this Thursday. Richard, I want to introduce a new segment here before we sign off. It's called Buy or Sell. I'm just going to throw a couple statements of fact at you, or opinion rather. You tell me whether you would buy or sell that. We'll start with the LA Chargers. They're 2-0. Jim Harbaugh has got this team playing with an entirely new identity. Gone is Keenan Allen and gone is Mike Williams. And now here is J.K. Dobbins, the revelation, toting the rock for 100-plus yards again this week. Richard, are you buying or selling the LA Chargers making the playoffs this year?
I'm buying that, Mitchell. I'm buying it, and I'm buying a lot of it. If you look at Jim Harbaugh's years in San Francisco when he first got there, they were a muffed punt, fumbled punt away from making what was that, the NFC Championship his first year. They made it to the NFC Champion. I mean, they made it to the Super Bowl his second year. They made it back to the NFC Championship to face our Seattle Seahawks in his third year. So this Chargers team was very talented. They were ridiculously underachieving for a long time. So it's not like he inherited a really bad team and didn't have any weapons. They have a ton of weapons on the defensive side. They got Khalil Mack coming off a career year. They got Joey Bosa on the other side. They got Derwin James in the secondary. They got the players. And so they got Asante Samuel Jr. at one corner. They got playmakers. They got Perriman at the linebacker spot. And so offensively, Jim Harbaugh lives by running the football. That's why he brought Greg Roman in, because they're going to run the football. And they've run it, and they've shown that J.K. Dobbins can really do it. And he's been a really great story the first 2 weeks of the season, just finding his home after all the injuries, the debilitating pain that he was in, and for him to have incredible success running the football in this offense, found a home. They're winning ball games, and I think they were going to continue to win ball games. I look forward to them playing the Kansas City Chiefs with this new strategy, with this new formula that Jim Harbaugh's used for years, that his brother, John Harbaugh, used. You're going to play great defense. You're going to run the ball. We're going to play fantastic special teams. Like, you don't have to guess a lot of times what they're doing. Like, they're going to play most of it by the book. Now they're going for it on fourth down a little bit more than they used to, with the analytics and all that. But they're as football 101 as it gets. Like, hey, what's the decision that should be made? It's made. Hey, should it be a timeout here? Bang. It's, football intelligence is there for the Harbaughs. And I think the LA Chargers found the coach they needed, and it's going to be a really good season. It's going to be a playoff appearance. And then it's going to be up to Justin Herbert what they're going to be, because you see he's not putting the game in Justin Herbert's hands very often. Even though Justin Herbert is this all-world, he's paid really, really well to play quarterback. They don't care about that. They care about winning the game. When they need to lean on Justin Herbert, they will. But right now, I don't think he's thrown for 200 yards in either of these ball games, and they've won them very comfortably. And I think they're going to continue with that formula until something changes. Maybe something changes. They got to lean on Justin Herbert. Then they will. But until then, this is the way the offense got to run, and they're winning ball games, and I think it's a good job.
Well, he did the same thing last year in taking Michigan in the national title. I mean, J.J. McCarthy was not throwing the ball a whole lot. I mean, occasionally you see him in play action situations, but a lot of people were shocked he went top 10, and now you can see what Michigan looks like without a quarterback, but we're not going to get too much into college football talk. Richard, let's move on. You witnessed this firsthand when you were in Miami last week. Tua Tagovailoa goes down with another huge hit. Another concussion. At this point, Richard, what are your thoughts here? I mean, Tua should retire, buy or sell.
Well, I need answers first off, because it looked like a concussion to me, and maybe it was just like his neck got pushed in a weird angle, because it didn't seem like enough of a collision with the head to the body that would have shaking the brain enough to concuss him. But hey, I'm not a doctor. So, but there was a guy in Brandon Cooks who got concussions, Mitchell, who was getting concussions all the time. And everybody was like so worried that he should retire, should retire. And then one day he actually went to the doctors to figure it out. And they found out that he was like clenching up so much right before the hit that he was almost passing out. So he wasn't necessarily always getting concussed, Mitchell, but he was passing out because he was just anticipating a hit, I guess, or something of that nature. And it's been written about, I might, maybe they call it something else other than clenching up, and may have scientific terms, but you can look it up. But they found out he wasn't necessarily getting concussions. Now, Tua Tagovailoa, it looked like an actual concussion, but I'm not sure every single one has been. But if it's me, Mitchell, if I'm his family, if I'm his brother, if I'm his dad, I'm saying, hey, son, proud of you. You've done and shown that you can play this game at the highest level. You could play at a high level. You took this offense, one of the hottest offenses and most explosive. You were able to overcome your concussions by being more accurate, more precise with the ball, making quicker decisions, and able to not get in a concussion at all last year. You got your money. They're going to have to pay you. Go enjoy your family. Live to fight another day, because you never know what the next one's going to do. You never know how bad the next one is. Is the next one going to put you in a much different state? Like, do you walk away from the next one? And those are the questions you have when it happens in a way where you're like, everybody that watched the play was like, I wouldn't have thought you would got concussed by that play. It wasn't a helmet to helmet like collision by any means. It looked like he was just trying to stay in the way. He was just trying to stay in the way. He was just trying to get in his way, not let him score, not like deliver a hit. And he went down in that way. So yeah, I would say, hey, you gotta hang him up.
Richard, the Buffalo Bills, they're off to a 2-0 start. They dominated last week against the Dolphins, and frankly, it became a boring game. They got ahead so early. All the talk was about Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis leaving town. Now they've got a mystery crew of wide receivers, but they look good. Richard, are you buying or selling the Buffalo Bills are actually a better team this year than last?
I'm selling that, Mitchell. I'm not ready to buy that quite yet. I mean, they have played really well. Josh Allen played well. James Cook had his breakout game of the season last week. Their defense had a lot of unheralded guys. Jamarcus Ingram with 2 interceptions and a pick 6. They have unheralded guys with 46 and 47 getting interceptions, Mitchell. And as a fan, I was sitting there like, I know who the guys are because I'm watching the team and we studied it. But it looked weird, but they're still making big plays, and they getting good safety play after losing Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer. And so you lost Tre'Davious White, and you're still getting good corner play. You're getting good receiver play from Khalil Shakir. Dalton Kincaid is starting to impose his will a little bit. But I just can't see them as better. I need more of a sample size for me to make that call.
Richard, we see the Baltimore Ravens off to an 0-2 start. How concerned are you about this team? Buy or sell them not winning the AFC North?
I'm selling that. I'm going to guess they're going to win the AFC North, Mitchell. They're going to win it. I know Pittsburgh off to a great start. They're going to run into some controversy or chaos or bumps in the road here soon. Their defense and TJ Watt they're playing outstanding football. Minka Fitzpatrick's playing great football. Porter, they're just a good team right now. Highsmith, Cam Hayward is going to be a big time player for him as he always is. But what do they do when Russell Wilson comes back? When you have to sit there and answer questions that, hey, Russell Wilson's healthy, but he's not playing. That's going to be something that I'm interested to see how they navigate that, because it's going to be a legit conversation. Whichever camp you in, if you believe Justin Fields is the answer and he's earned his spot, or you think, hey, cool, he got us through, but we want to play Russell Wilson. That's what you brought him for. I'm interested to see how the great Mike Tomlin navigates this situation. But No, I don't think Baltimore is out of it. I think John Harbaugh, this is the first time I think he started 0-2 in his career. And I think they're going to come out and find answers and be able to get this situation rectified. The Cincinnati Bengals are 0-2. The Browns are 1-1 and haven't looked as good as they did at times with Joe Flacco, even though, they looked a little bit better this week. I'm looking forward to I think Baltimore is going to get it back together.
Trevor Lawrence, your favorite.
My guy.
To say that Jacksonville Jaguars couldn't have got off to a much worse start to this season is an understatement. Trevor Lawrence gets paid a huge amount of money, Richard, and looks frankly inept. Buy or sell, Trevor Lawrence is the most overpaid player in the NFL.
No, I'm not buying that. I'm not buying that. No. I mean, Daniel Jones is getting $40 million right now, and I'm not sold on Daniel Jones. I'm not sold that Daniel Jones is an upgrade over a Gardner Minshew and even Andy Dalton or a lot of these veteran quarterbacks, and he's getting $40 million. So, no, I'm not going with him. I'd probably stick very aggressively to Daniel Jones being that guy.
And the best for last, Richard, your Seattle Seahawks. There's a window of opportunity opening for the Seattle Seahawks. The LA Rams are riddled with injuries. The San Francisco 49ers are battling their own injuries. Richard, is this the year Seattle Seahawks win the NFC West? Buy or sell?
I'm very close to buying, Mitchell. I'm at the register and it's in my cart. But I'm not there yet. I need to see a little bit more. They got that win over the New England Patriots, but it was by the skin of a chin. And there were some sloppy plays, there were some missed tackles, there were some dropped footballs that just wouldn't allow me to buy. And I'm not ready to give up on the San Francisco 49ers after the Minnesota game because they don't win in Minnesota. You wanted it to be different, but after 30 years, no matter what's happening, how good your team is, you get to Minnesota, you're taking a loss. I don't know why it's that way, but it's been that way. And, I think they get things back on track with this week against the LA Rams. I think the Seattle Seahawks get a much needed win with the Miami team, banged up Miami team, obviously with Tua Tagovailoa out, coming to Seattle to Lumen Stadium with Skylar Thompson. I think they're able to find a way to win that game, confuse a quarterback with obviously the various looks that Mike McDonald gives. I'm close, Mitchell. I'm close, but I'm not there. I'm selling that for now. We can revisit that later in the season and we'll see if I'm still there. But right now they're at the top of the division, playing really good football and have a really favorable matchup coming up. So it's good.
Richard, before we wrap, my personal favorite segment every week, the Richard Sherman Power Rankings. Where do you stack them up this week, Rich?
Mitchell, it's tough. It's really tough because it's a lot of movement now. Obviously, the Kansas City Chiefs are still one because they are undefeated and deservedly so. Who's two is the question because I want it to be the San Francisco 49ers, even though they took that loss. They took that loss to a very talented team in the Minnesota Vikings who are playing really good football right now. Your Detroit Lions also, like my top five, took a beating. And Dallas just didn't want to be in there, Mitchell. I knew I shouldn't have put them in there. I knew I should have went to Seattle, and some told me to just split it, and I should have just went with my gut. Kansas City Chiefs. Trying to make sure I don't miss anybody. Don't miss anyone. Kansas City Chiefs. Buffalo Bills jump in there. Just a dominant performance against a team that's supposed to be a contender. San Francisco 49ers. Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Wow.
Seattle Seahawks. Seattle Seahawks 4, Houston 5.
Okay. Seattle makes an appearance here, Richard. Let's see how long they can stay in the top 5 of your power rankings. Richard, that concludes it as we wrap up. I will let you say your last words here.
Well, thank you guys for joining us. As you can see, we're trying to get a lot more content, instant reactions as often as we can. Stick with us. We appreciate you joining us. I know you're getting a lot of notifications, but keep those notifications coming. We're trying to give you the content that you want. Hopefully, we're talking about your team because we love this game. Hit that subscribe button if you're new and we're talking about your team. We're going to be talking about them a lot this season. Hopefully, it turns out how you want it. Stay tuned.